We've now talked about artificial ways that we inhibit enzyme activity and also natural ways that we regulate enzyme activity. In the next few slides, we'll talk about examples where we will inhibit enzyme activity with drugs, and we'll talk about specific drugs and how they work. The first example we're going to talk about is an ACE inhibitor. ACE is really just short for angiotensin converting enzyme. That's an enzyme that's going to convert an inactive hormone, angiotensinogen, into the active form of the hormone, angiotensin. The active form of that hormone constricts blood vessels and elevates blood pressure. So, if we are inhibiting ACE, which makes angiotensin, what effect do you think the ACE inhibitor has on blood pressure? Pause for a moment and see if you can answer that. The ACE inhibitor will prevent angiotensinogen from becoming angiotensin. And since the ACE inhibitor prevents angiotensin from forming, all the effects of angiotensin are blocked. Since angiotensin elevates blood pressure, an ACE inhibitor has the net effect of decreasing blood pressure. Another really important set of examples of inhibitors are antibiotics. The first class of antibiotics that we're going to talk about are the sulfa drugs. Antibiotics are really any molecule that kill or weaken bacteria. Oftentimes we accomplish this by targeting an enzyme that the bacteria need, but humans do not. Sulfa drugs are going to be competitive inhibitors for the bacterial production of folic acid. Folic acid is produced by using para-aminobenzoic acid, whose structure you can see over on the left. Since all the sulfa drugs have a very similar structure, they can bind into the same active site and prevent the enzyme from functioning on the para-aminobenzoic acid. Since folic acid is required for bacteria, but we get it from our diets, it doesn't affect us at all. Another class of antibiotics are the beta-lactams. Beta-lactams are molecules that are based on penicillin, and they all have the same core structure where there is a beta-lactam. That beta-lactam fits perfectly into a transpeptidase enzyme that links together and strengthens cell walls in certain types of bacteria. Without that function, bacteria are far more vulnerable to our native immune function. However, it doesn't kill off the bacteria, and so the bacteria are readily able to develop resistance in many cases. Beta-lactams are really specific to the active site, and the bacteria are easily able to alter that active site to make that enzyme resistant to the drug. Some bacteria also produce a protein that hydrolyzes the amide of beta-lactams before they interact with the transpeptidase, which makes them overall useless. They call that enzyme a beta-lactamase, meaning that beta-lactams are the substrate and beta-lactamase would be hydrolyzing the beta-lactams. Since my daughter has been having plenty of ear infections, I've been pretty familiar with the beta-lactam family of medicines, but also with clavulanic acid, which is a beta-lactamase inhibitor. Remember, beta-lactamases are the enzymes that degrade the beta-lactam antibiotics. Clavulanic acid is an inhibitor of those enzymes. So clavulanic acid doesn't have any antibiotic activity of its own, even though it has a beta-lactam, but it's used along with amoxicillin to stave off resistance by preventing the beta-lactamase activity. Together, those are marketed as Augmentin. Another antibiotic is Cipro. Cipro attacks DNA gyrase, which is an enzyme that's present in bacteria but not in humans. Its mechanism is unknown. DNA gyrase is essential for bacteria to have their DNA in the correct form to replicate, which means it doesn't actually kill off the bacteria, but it keeps them from copying at all. Since the bacteria can't copy, they can't develop a resistance, and so they don't develop a resistance very easily at all. And Cipro is really widely active against a lot of bacteria, a quality that we refer to as broad spectrum. It's kind of a last line of defense in many cases. Another really important enzyme in overall drug metabolism is the class of enzymes called cytochrome P450s. It's not just one enzyme, it's actually a huge group of enzymes that are for degrading all sorts of compounds that we can't metabolize under other pathways. Drugs fall into this category as well as many other molecules. Grapefruit actually contains natural inhibitors of cytochrome P450. So if you have grapefruit, the cytochrome P50s aren't able to degrade the drugs, and then the drug stays in your system much longer, resulting in much higher doses than are expected. Not only are enzymes targets of inhibitors to treat diseases, enzymes themselves can be either indicators of diseases or they can be used to treat diseases. So for example, an abnormal enzyme level in the bloodstream can oftentimes indicate damage to a certain type of tissue. So enzymes that are present in tissues that are then released into the bloodstream would indicate damage to that tissue. So enzymes like lactate dehydrogenase, which are present in the heart or liver, showing up in the blood, indicate huge problems in either our heart or our liver. Enzymes can also be used to treat diseases. For example, people who are lactose intolerant lack lactase in order to degrade the lactose. If lactase is introduced into the diet or is used to treat the foods before ingestion, the lactose is degraded earlier and people can then have dairy products. Enzymes also can be used to convert molecules into one form or another, and signals from that conversion or the resulting converted molecule can be much easier to detect. A really common example of that is a blood glucose meter. It's hard to detect glucose, but glucose dehydrogenase will change the glucose into a different form, and that change registers on the blood glucose meter. We've now talked a lot about enzymes, but many of our enzymes require cofactors in order to properly function. Those cofactors that are small organic molecules that are not able to be produced by our bodies naturally are called vitamins. Vitamins are required in really small concentrations, especially compared to our proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. So while they are required in our diets, we need way less of them, about 6 orders of magnitude less from them. So a microgram scale as opposed to a gram scale. There are 13 vitamins. 4 of those vitamins are fat soluble, meaning they're largely nonpolar, and 9 of them are water soluble. The vitamins that are fat soluble tend to stick around for a lot longer, and we need them in periodic doses. The ones that are water soluble tend to get eliminated much faster with our urine, and because of that, we need them in much more frequent doses. The first of our water-soluble vitamins is vitamin C. Vitamin C is also called ascorbic acid, so many times on an ingredients list you'll see ascorbic acid. In most species, ascorbic acid or vitamin C is synthesized naturally from the carbohydrate glucose. However, in humans, it is not possible to synthesize vitamin C from glucose, and so it's essential. Vitamin C plays an important role in reducing iron to help maintain proper collagen structure. Remember, collagen is the fibrous structural protein that allows our skin and many other tissues to hold together. Vitamin C also is a general antioxidant, and because of that, it has a broad-ranging function. It's also helpful for maintaining the proper form of other vitamins like vitamin E, which also functions as an antioxidant. A second set of water-soluble vitamins are the B vitamins. There are actually 8 B vitamins that are numbered 1 through 12. And the B vitamins are not retained with the proteins, so they're generally required in really small concentrations. Proper levels of these vitamins are essential for proper function. Each one of the B vitamins actually has a different role in the body. We're not going to get more specific than that. One thing that's interesting about the B vitamins is the B vitamins are oftentimes supplied through a wide range of protein-rich foods. Generally, the types of things that are most rich in protein are the types of things that are good sources of B vitamins. Many times vegetable sources are good sources for B vitamins, with the exception of vitamin B12. Notice that vitamin B12 has no significant vegetable sources, and so people on a vegan or a vegetarian diet need to worry most about B12 levels. And oftentimes we'll take B12 supplements. In addition to vitamin C and the 8 B vitamins, There are also 4 fat-soluble vitamins, the first of which is vitamin A. Vitamin A actually comes in several forms. All of those forms are responsible for roles such as seeing in color, the differentiation of cells, the development of epithelial tissue, and reproduction. The A vitamins are actually oftentimes derived from carotenes, like beta-carotene, which is in carrots. It makes carrots orange. A second set of fat-soluble vitamins are the D vitamins. D vitamins are the one type of vitamin that actually can be synthesized in our bodies. They're synthesized from steroids with UV light. So we can synthesize vitamin D by going out into the sunlight. People who have less pigment in their skin usually are more susceptible to damage from UV light, but are also better able to synthesize vitamin D from those steroids. People who have more pigment in their skin typically have more problems synthesizing D vitamins. However, most of us don't get enough sunlight to properly supply the D vitamins that we need for our maintaining proper levels of calcium and phosphate. And so oftentimes D vitamins are supplied through dairy, where we often would get our calcium and phosphate, and they are also supplied artificially as vitamins. Most people are D vitamin deficient. The last 2 fat-soluble vitamins are the E vitamins and the K vitamins. The E vitamins function as antioxidants, much like vitamin C. However, the E vitamins are much less powerful as antioxidants than vitamin C, so vitamin C can actually take the oxidized form of the E vitamin and reduce it back, and then the E vitamin can turn around and reduce other things. That allows us to have much lower levels of E vitamins if we have a higher level of vitamin C. K vitamins are responsible for proper folding of many proteins, especially the clot-forming proteins. So K vitamins oftentimes are help to regulate clotting,